Today I'm out here with Sofyan Bey taking a look at three of our favorite crossovers. If you don't know, Sofyan runs Redline Reviews, and Sofyan and I have all reviewed these cars, but we have never really talked about how they fit in the automotive landscape. And I have to say, these are my three favorite crossovers. Are they actually your three favorite?
They're definitely up there. I mean, they kind of offer everything for, or something for everyone. I mean, we have the RDX, which is the newest entry here, and then the Volvo, which came out last year, along with the Stelvio. The Stelvio is kind of an outlier, though, because it's the 505 horsepower version, but it's what they sent us, so we have to make do, right?
Yeah, actually, I kind of like that they sent us that one because it fits in my theory that this is the best value in the segment. The Volvo is the most luxurious in the segment, and I think also one of the best rounded.
Yeah.
And that the Stelvio is by far the sportiest in the segment.
Yeah, and they definitely have price differences to match that. This one is $46,000, the Volvo is $71,000, and then the Alfa is $86,000.
And this starts so low.
It does. And you know what? In this A-Spec trim, it actually doesn't look like it doesn't belong here. It definitely has the aggressive looks that Acura has been missing for years. Let's talk a little about the looks of these cars, because they couldn't look any different. I mean, the Acura, to me, kind of has like almost like a Marvel comic looking face with that grill. It reminds me of Superman.
I love this thing. It is Superman.
No, it is a much better grill than the beak they've been using for years. And you know, with the A-Spec model, the black headlights, the black accents, the lower front fascia. And this is the only model here that gives you actual fog lights. So.
I wish this was chrome though. Like in the regular one.
Okay, but then they had to do that for the A-Spec to give it a little bit.
And I wish these little widgets were chrome like Mercedes does with that grille. That would have looked so cool.
Okay, and they also should have just made the A, illuminated, since it's the biggest emblem here for sure.
That is enormous. I mean, like, look at that. That is huge.
It's definitely a different look, but it's something that Acura kind of needed to go with.
Way more attractive than the outgoing RDX.
I will say so. But when I look at the Volvo, I have to say this is gorgeous, elegant, like classy. It'll age well. It'll look great in like the next 5-10 years. And
I think that goes for the interior as well. I think the interior in the Volvo is by far the most elegant, classically designed, and the seats are super comfortable.
And it's the only car here with massaging seats, so to me that automatically gets my win.
Does anybody? I don't think anybody else actually offers massaging seats. Does the GLC?
No, Mercedes and BMW don't. You have to go up to a class above.
I think this might be the only one with massaging seats.
So there's
available.
a reason why this one's 70 grand. I mean, you get the massaging seats.
But this one's also the plug-in hybrid.
Yes.
So this one's actually could be up to 10 grand off depending on your tax situation.
And you get 18 miles of range on electric only. So that's a bragging right there.
And by far the most efficient, 26 miles per gallon
combined,
after you're done.
Which honestly is not that much more efficient than the Acura. The Acura is like 23.
But 400 horsepower, significantly faster than the Acura, actually matches the GLC 43 AMG and beats the SQ5.
Which is impressive, although handling-wise, not quite there.
No, not quite the same.
This is, speed-wise, it's there. Now, if you want handling...
That's what this is all about. This is the quadrifolio version of the Stelvio, and so we have a slightly wider body. They kind of did like a Hellcat wide body, only tastefully.
This thing is about 2 inches wider than the standard model, and it's about like a ½ inch lower, so you really can see the difference. But when you look at the front of this thing, I mean, it doesn't look like anything else, really. It's so Alpha. It's so Italian.
It's definitely.
It's so Italian. Now, I will say that this is the only car out of these three that have bi-xenons, which is an older technology. Everyone else has gone with a full LED.
Under the hood, things are a little bit different between these three, but the Volvo and the Acura are sort of a little bit more closely related thematically.
Yeah, they both have 2-liter 4-cylinders, and we've actually kind of lined them up by their power outputs from least powerful to the most powerful. But let's, I guess, start with the Acura since it's the least powerful. This has a 2-liter turbocharged direct injection 4-cylinder. It's the same motor from the Type R.
And the Accord.
Yeah, and the Accord. But here it makes 272 horsepower, 280 foot-pounds of torque. It's almost the most powerful in the segment. Only the Alfa beats it for base engines.
Yeah, base power. And under this hood, we have a 2-liter 4-cylinder that's unique just to the Volvo. This is not used in anything else, so there's no Type R.
Yes, yeah. Pedigree. Well, this is their motor that we've tested in like the XC90, the S90, the S60 that's coming out now. But it's like a turbocharged and supercharged and a hybrid, so it's the most.
Got everything.
It's the most complex, and it might scare a lot of you away because you think, oh, what if this breaks? What is the warranty on Volvos? They're 4-year, 50,000, something like that.
They're pretty. We'll pop it up down there at the bottom of the screen somewhere. It's industry standard luxury long.
It's definitely long, and you have that longer battery warranty. Yep. But the best thing about the TA is 400 horsepower and 472 foot-pounds of torque. So almost 500 pound-feet of torque.
So under this hood, you get 250 horsepower, 316, or 400. So there's more choices. And of course, if you get the hybrid, then you no longer get a mechanical all-wheel drive system. Now we get an electric motor in the back.
Right, so you have that, they're not really linked together.
Right.
The electric motor, and the rear wheels are only driven by the electric motor, but I mean, you get 18 miles of range with electric only, which could be a good amount of range if for somebody who drives less than 20 miles a day, commute to work, you technically wouldn't have to use any gas. I will say though that this engine does not compare with this. If you guys want to actually fairly compare it, Volvo offers the T5, which has 250 horsepower, so it's only a turbo, and then the T6 has the turbo and supercharged model, which...
So the base XC60 is going to be slower than the RDX.
Yes.
But the T6 will be faster than the RDX, and this will be way faster than the RDX. But if you want to go fast, that's what's next door, of course. And this was the Ferrari California, right?
Yeah, this was the 3.9 liter V8 from the Ferrari California T with 2 cylinders basically cut off. And they haven't neutered the output from the sedan, the Giulia. It still makes 505 horsepower, which I want to say it's the most powerful until the Jaguar F-Pace SVR comes out. So we've stepped inside the interior of the Alfa, and I really, again, like I said earlier, love the red combination, this one.
I do love the red.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't give us red seats, but I kind of like how they made it a little bit not quite as bright. I mean, you have the red along the dash and on the door panels, and then the stitching, and the carbon fiber. I mean, that just adds 5 horsepower as well. You have some carbon fiber.
One thing that I love about this car, the Stelvio, though, is that you don't have to get the quadrifoglio to get the red interior.
No.
You can actually get the red interior on the base model, too.
Yeah, no,
which I think is really attractive. It's a very nice touch.
Yeah, I mean, the Italian styling on the outside carries over inside here because they offer bright colors. It's got a very clean design, if not quite the most luxurious feeling, but the best thing about this interior for me are those paddles.
The paddles are great.
Aluminum paddles that are mounted like Ferrari style on the wheel. They're huge. They do get in the way when you're trying to actually access the turn signals or the wipers, which is annoying, but that's okay.
Last night I was driving along and I kept hitting the rear windshield wiper, and I have no idea exactly how I was doing it while I was trying to paddle shift. I love the style, I love the components inside. I think it's just missing a few things that we find in the competition, I think is what it really ends up being for me. Like, you know, we've got the leather stitch dashboard. These kind of remind me of like Kermit the Frog eyes or something here. But we don't have all of the same gadgets and goodies that you find in the Volvo. No, no massaging seats.
Cooled seats.
No cooled seats.
Which is annoying.
No lean keeping assist.
Yeah, it only beeps at you. It's only passive. And
None
also,
of that
look at the screen here.
stuff.
Like, it looks kind of crunchy and grainy. And
Yeah,
I don't like how it
small.
doesn't take up the entire real estate here.
Yeah.
It just seems like an afterthought.
CarPlay helped it a lot, though.
It did. The CarPlay helped, but really they need to bump up the resolution of this screen. And then you have to control it from this little knob here, which isn't...
And this is a big knob, but there's no touch top. And I wonder why it is so big if you have no finger writing thing on the top.
Yeah, it doesn't really need to. And honestly, like, I mean, going through, this is the home screen here. You can kind of go through all your different sources. There's just something about it that seems like it's missing. So yeah, the first thing I do when I get into the Volvo is definitely turn on the massage. I mean,
Definitely.
This is the only car in the segment that offers the massage, and it's like only $3,000 if you want the massage.
And it's actually a fairly good massage.
Swedish massage. Only the Swedes would do it.
Because a lot of massage seats don't really massage you very well.
Buick's is definitely the worst. It literally just inflates and deflates the bolster or the lumbar, which annoys the crap out of me, so I don't use it.
The only funny thing is the way that you control it is with the touchscreen, which Volvo has improved, but is still a little sluggish.
I think the worst part is when you start it up. Sometimes it takes forever to start up, and you're like sitting there like, I wanted to punch the screen at times.
It's pretty, and
It
it
is
has
very
all the
pretty.
functions. And once it's booted up, like now, it actually seems to be much more responsive.
Yeah. I also like the orientation that Volvo
do.
did. This is like Tesla style. It's their, I think it's 10 inches. It's their Sensus Connect. And it looks great. Honestly, great quality graphics. I mean, relatively easy to use once you get past the learning curve.
I love this styling, though. We have the optional leather stitch dash in this one, which really adds a lot to the interior, very much like the Stelvio.
Yeah.
But I think the overall interior parts quality is a little bit more consistent in here, and I actually really like the wood. I am a sucker for wood trim.
No, the matte finish wood that's light looks great. I mean, this interior looks like $100 grand.
Sorry. The big difference, I think, is between this and the Stelvio, of course, is the back seat, because we have so much more legroom back here.
And yeah, and that's what's crazy is Alfa says that car has 32 inches of legroom. Volvo says this has 38. Yeah. 6 inches, and you're going to notice that right away.
And more front legroom at the same time too. So the combined number is even more. It's a huge difference.
Yeah, well, it shows you that Volvo actually had better use of the space, because the two cars are the same size.
Right.
Like they're both.
Which is fun. They're exactly the same size on the outside. The interior in this generation of RDX is a serious improvement, I think, not just for the RDX, but for Acura in general, too.
Yeah, well, Acura said that they benchmarked the European brands, but they're still pricing it as Japanese car levels. And I have to say, we just got out of the Volvo. Do you think that their claim is valid, Alex?
Yes and no. I think that keep in mind the price. Obviously, we just hopped out of an $80,000 Volvo into a $47,000 Acura, but I think they benchmarked the base model as well. Yeah. And since that's where the RDX plays, it kind of makes sense. I mean, the BMW 3 Series has, or X3 rather, has a few cheap plastics lower.
It does. I mean, for me, the Mercedes is probably the best looking interior, but keep in mind we're in the A-spec model, so this is the only one that gets the red leather seats. You also have some suede Alcantara.
And we don't have wood.
Yeah, I do like the olive open pore wood.
I do love the wood
in the advanced trim. So the advanced trim, to me, I guess if you get it with like the brown or the beige interior, that feels more luxurious, while they kind of went more of a sportier look. Really, I think with this car, I feel like it almost feels the most roomy to me. No, it feels good in here. You sit up nice and high.
But you can't get it without the moonroof. So if you're taller, you'll find less headroom in here than some of the base models of the Europeans that have the moonroof optional. So you get that little extra room. Okay. And no leather dashboards. It's all, nice injection molded dashboard, but no real leather bits.
And I guess I'm okay with that, because they added the real leather here. It's here, and it's all
the suede bits are nice.
The touch points where it was kind of that's important. But I think what Acura also gives you is the most storage. You have this storage thingy down here, deep storage over here, like a big console here as well. I mean, this is kind of the way Hondas and Acuras have always been, and a lot of people in America are really going to appreciate this.
And no big battery hanging out there.
Right.
I don't understand this dynamic mode button though.
Well, they wanted it to be kind of like reminiscent of the NSX, which has the same dynamic mode selector. Honestly, people who are going to get in this and be like, they're going to think this is the volume, probably.
I have caught myself reaching for this to try and adjust the volume. So once you hop in the back, we get a little bit more legroom than the Volvo, but actually a little bit less headroom in reality.
Yeah, so I didn't realize your head was not touching the roof in the Volvo. Luckily, I'm relatively short, so it doesn't bother me, but I am noticing my hair gets very close to the ceiling. So that sloping roof that they added in this car definitely is.
It gives it that sexy look, but not as practical.
But the one thing I like about this car is it has a flat floor in here, so you could actually fit 3 people across. That you have to thank Honda and Acura for having great
And we
packaging.
have USB charging ports back there. I think back here it looks a little bit less premium than the back of the Volvo too.
I would have to agree, and because this one's not the advanced, we don't get heated rear seats as well. I would like to see like maybe some sunshades back here, but I believe this may be the only car out of all the cars here that have speakers in the ceiling, though. I do like that. The 16-speaker ELS, honestly, it sounds almost as good as the $3,200 Bowers & Wilkins in the Volvo. I will admit. So Acura has done a great job with the audio system in this car.
These seats are very comfortable, but we have hard plastic on the back of the front seats, and you can see the 4-way adjustable seats, headrests from there.
Yeah.
Those are handy.
Yeah, I guess
I like the height adjustable belts. We don't actually get those in a lot of the competition. Like some of the BMWs are even leaving out height adjustable belts. Like the 5 Series, no adjustable shoulder belts anymore.
I've only saw it in some GM products. But
That's very handy.
That is really nice. But yeah, over here we still have a nice armrest that folds down. Nice suede also on this.
Yeah, nice attention to detail in this cabin. Hopping into the cargo area, the RDX definitely has more cargo room than either of the others. 29.5 cubic feet of storage space back here.
Yeah, it's really nice. However, you really are noticing that sloping roof, because I didn't realize I had to duck my head. This is kind of, I guess this is what it feels like to be 6 feet tall sitting in the back seat of something that doesn't have very much headroom. But Acura was very proud of the fact that they increased the space, and they added a ton of underfloor storage here, which they like to actually include in the cargo hold capacity, which is why I've seen like over 30 in some of their publications. But you can also just kind of lift this up here.
And there's even more. When it comes to spare tires, we have to make a disclaimer. The A-spec trim, which is what we're looking at, does not actually have one. For some reason, only the non-A-spec trims with super handling all-wheel drive actually have the spare tire. However, logically, you should be able to add one to any of the front-wheel drive trims if you wanted to. Moving to the Volvo, we really noticed that the glass is not as vertical actually as it is in the RDX.
Yeah, you can
So-
actually see how much shorter
yeah.
it is because I can't actually
Oh, it'd
fit
be good for
all the way
tailgating.
in. No, this is much better for tailgating, and it's actually
Yeah.
at a really great height. And you can also lower this rear end
Yes,
if you'd like.
I was
from
gonna say
the buttons
I
back
have
here.
more buttons back here. I have buttons. I have buttons to power fold the rear seats, and I have a button to raise and lower the rear air suspension, which is
Ooh.
very handy. So
That's
for
great.
shorter people like you can get your
Yes.
legs closer to the ground.
Yeah, this is really nice how you can lower and
But,
raise the suspension.
but no spare tire, which is sad because under here we get the charge cord, and then the rest of the area is consumed by bits for the air suspension. So we have the air tanks for the air suspension, battery back here rather than under the front. And according to the numbers, the Stelvio has the smallest cargo area. I think it's the width. This definitely feels
I
like
feel
we're
like I'm
tighter.
definitely like bumping elbows
Yeah.
with you in here, but they say this has 18.5, which in contrast is almost half of what Acura says is in the
That's true.
RDX. But it actually
Well,
goes in pretty,
two-thirds.
yeah. Well, it goes in pretty deep, but you definitely notice it's a lot more narrow. You have like bigger like interior components to kind of
Right.
eat into the space.
It's
a little
this
bit.
this whole side, whatever is in that side of the vehicle is taking up a lot of room.
Yeah, which
This-
again, this car kind of reminds me more like a hatch instead
Yeah.
of an SUV that's kind of just been jacked up a little bit. But
We do have some lovely rails here integrated into the
no,
floor.
you
Those
can,
are
you
a
can
nice
strap
touch.
your cargo down. It's really nicely carpeted, and then Alfa also gives you a good amount of storage underneath here. Actually,
what's
I'm
under there?
surprised.
Battery.
But
The
no
European
spare.
European way to stick your battery in the car.
So all
Yeah,
the
no
Europeans
spare
here have
again.
the batteries in the back, and yeah, no spare in this car. I believe this because I think it has run flats, or it may have a fix-a-flat kit or
Oh,
something.
we do have a very handy thing to help you keep that up. So
Oh.
there we go.
That's clever. Very clever thinking.
Before we get out on the road, let's talk about some of the performance numbers. I happen to have them written down so we can talk about them while we're driving here on this gravel road. Base Stelvio, 5.4 seconds, which is about the same as the Volvo XC60 T6. I just found that out. So in our
Really? That's
testing,
impressive.
T6, yeah. So that was the base model. And that's faster than the Acura, which does it in 5.7.
Okay.
But this model, of course, we're now in the Stelvio, and that is 3.6. So that is 1.5, about 1.5 seconds faster than the fastest XC60.
Yeah, and
the
honestly, this
400
is like
horsepower one.
faster than anything else in this
Yeah.
segment because I think the Mercedes is like 3.9. So
Yes.
Alpha's got the bragging rights for sure.
An extremely long 3.9. It's so much slower. And the Macan, do you remember what the Macan is?
I want to say it's like around 3.8 also. For like, I'd have
Sounds
to
about
double
right.
check, but I think it's pretty much there as well.
The one thing that we both commented on with the Stelvio is that when you're in the race mode, it turns off the stability control, and I'm kind of a wimp there.
I just don't have the guts to drive
yeah,
around with it all the way off. I
don't.
wish Alpha gave you a mode where you could put it in race with the loud exhaust with the stability control,
Yeah.
at least in a sports setting.
Or at least just have the loud exhaust whenever you want, because who doesn't want a loud exhaust? This is so much fun. It's just literally fun to wear out your transmission early and just deliberately be shifting up and down and up and down.
He likes to play
'Cause-
musical or trombone, basically.
Because it sounds so good.
Best sounding SUV in the segment. Oh
Best
yes.
sounding SUV. And I was surprised by that because when it's idling, it kind of sounds like a tractor.
No, it doesn't sound all that great when it's in advanced efficiency or normal,
No.
but you put it into race and everything just
Yes.
changes. Like this thing feels like a sports car.
And it goes like there's no tomorrow. But there's a little bit of lag at the beginning, which is surprising.
Yeah, even like I tried brake torquing it and it goes to about 2,000, it still has lag. It doesn't take off with the ferocity of the Trackhawk for sure.
Right. Because if we're in an area where we can safely stop here, and you stop, and then you floor it, there's a moment of
All
nothing,
lag.
and then everything, and all that fun noise.
Yes.
It's kind of like the GTR that way.
Yeah, the
GTR
lag is
reminds me of that.
disappointing, but
Yeah.
once the turbo kicks in, you have that old school turbo feeling where you're just like, holy crap, and it'll scare your passengers.
Stopping distance is pretty good. This one is 107 feet, 60 miles an hour
Wow.
to zero.
Wow.
And I was shocked by that because the first Stelvio that we tested a while back, in our test, we had the base model, and it was 124 feet,
Okay.
which is sort of middling to
Right.
long for the segment.
But that number that you gave, 107, does that include the carbon ceramics that are
That is not. That's
Okay,
that's
so
as
as the
equipped
base
right
brakes?
here. Yeah.
So technically, it could be shorter. possibility it could be shorter with
Possibly,
the
yeah. It could be even shorter, but still, that's really good.
It is.
It needs a handle for the passenger, because all I've got is this one up here.
Yeah. Honestly, this car is just such a riot. Like, I can't even drive this thing like a regular SUV. I know it's got like a dynamic and a normal mode, but most of the times I found myself in the manual mode using the paddles because the paddles are so good in this car.
And I'm surprised by the suspension in this because it's actually quite comfortable.
Well, yeah, it is comfortable. I think, to me...
I mean, it's not Volvo comfortable.
No, absolutely not. But you know what? It feels a little more harsh for me, at least on the passenger side.
Yes.
But you can just push a little button here and put it into a softer setting. But really, the whole feeling of this car is just like sports car. Like,
yeah.
If you drive it like a sports car, you're not going to notice the harsh ride. Or at least harsher versus like, the Volvo and the Acura. But, but like, honestly, just kind of going around and driving it at like 8/10s, it's smooth. It's relatively smooth.
Like the latest AMG products, I think have been a little too firm for my tastes.
They have. I think we drove a GLC 43, and I noticed that one in Oregon. When we were in Oregon, it was just a bumpy, like really uncontrolled ride, and I was kind of like, it was a little bit of a deal breaker for me, the ride.
The RDX is in this bunch because it is such a good value. Although base performance isn't quite as good as the base Stelvio, it actually is fairly close, and it's about the equal of the base Q5 performance, if I recall. Notably better than the Volvo or the Infiniti, or especially the Lexus.
Yeah, no, Acura should be really proud of their new base engine with the quick shifting 10-speed, and they deliver that similar performance at less, of a price versus a lot of the European competitors.
And the handling is really good. That's the other thing that has impressed me about this new generation of RDX. But I would say that the key thing to remember about super handling all-wheel drive, and the best way to describe it, is performance uphill versus handling downhill, because super handling all-wheel drive can overpower one rear wheel and can help corner you a little better and a little faster with that torque vectoring rear axle, but that's not going to do you any good in neutral handling situations. So power off when you're going downhill, it's still going to be front heavy. But I have to say that this new 10-speed's really good. I hope that they can replace that old 9-speed really quickly with this one.
Yeah, it can't happen soon enough. And honestly, the transmission is so good when it's just left and drive. And then when you have it in its sports setting, it just bangs off these quick shifts.
Yeah.
I will say the paddles, I wish that they were a little quicker to respond. Sometimes I flick the paddle, and maybe I just became jaded because the Stelvio's paddles are so perfect. They're like a Ferrari, honestly.
Yeah.
But I guess in terms of more mainstream luxury SUVs, this is really good, really top up there.
It's funny, I get a lot of questions about super handling all-wheel drive versus some of the other torque vectoring systems, but this one, at the moment, is the only one that overdrives that rear axle. Like the Buick Envision has that torque vectoring rear axle, but it can't send more than 50% of engine power to one wheel unless the front is slipping, and that's really the big innovation with this super handling all-wheel drive. So we both agree that the advanced trim of this is a really great value. As far as base model performance value, how do you think this compares to the base Stelvio? Because for the low price, which is lower than the Stelvio, you get a front-wheel drive vehicle, and you can get the rear-wheel drive Stelvio now.
Right, and it's about $2,000 to add the all-wheel drive. I feel like most people are probably going to add it. At least 50% are going to add it. But in terms of the base performance, that's where the new RDX really wows me, because it has that sportiness that I like with the Stelvio, but you're just kind of in a package that's a little bit more refined, more comfortable, more practical. And really, the only thing I guess I'm giving up to the Stelvio is maybe, I guess, the sound. It's not quite as...
Not quite, yeah. I think the four-cylinder sounds better in that Stelvio.
The Stelvio, well, even the base 2 liter in the Stelvio has that, the little pops and crackles from the exhaust. But in terms of steering, they're pretty comparable. Transmissions, they're pretty comparable.
And finally, we're out here driving serenely along, electric only, in the Volvo, getting a seat massage. But I actually think that the Volvo is probably one of the more comfortable, luxurious entries, even if you don't get the T8. I think if you just get the T5 or the T6, just the seat design is so comfortable, the way the suspension is tuned, and the overall interior volume, I think, is really well done.
Yeah, the Volvo definitely reminds you that you bought a luxury car.
Yes.
Volvo just kind of blew it out of the park with the way, even the way it smells in here. It just smells expensive.
I think they've channeled their inner Mercedes a little bit there. And if I switch it to pure drive mode, it's even a little bit more eager to stay in that electric only mode. But but true to the luxury sort of form, if I just floor it, we get 400 horsepower and
lots of torque.
Feels pretty good.
Oh my god! Even in pure, you had it in eco mode there.
Yeah,
and
and it's actually still
it
pretty
doesn't
good.
sound that great, but there's the
true.
torque. The torque you feel is just like ooh.
Now, you bring up an interesting point. I've heard a lot of people complain about the way this 4-cylinder engine sounds. Does that bother you? Because for some reason, I'm not bothered by it that much.
You know, it usually would bother me, but the rest of this car is just so good. I'm willing to overlook it, but I only really notice it when I drive the Acura and the Alfa back to back with this thing.
I think the air suspension is an interesting choice for Volvo too, because they didn't go for that active traditional damper like they used to use in the old XC60 and older Volvos. They instead opted for an air suspension, which we've only really seen mainly in full-size luxury sedans in the past, like S-Classes and the Lexus LS, and now we're starting to see in more normal priced vehicles, and Volvo chose to use that adaptive suspension instead of a sportier adaptive suspension like the Acura. It's kind of a different feel to the car too. And I encourage a lot of people, if you've never driven an air suspension before, go find a car that's available with and without it, because you can really see what an air suspension does. There's always going to be a little bit more floaty boat going on, a little bit more wallow, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this handles poorly, because actually I think that the neutral handling feel is better than the Acura. So when you're going downhill, I mean, I don't think it grips as well, because this is way heavier because of that massive battery pack.
Yeah, I think it's 500 pounds heavier than the Acura. That's significant.
So much heavier.
You know, jumping into this car after we were just in the Acura and the Stelvio, the steering is definitely the lightest in this car.
Yes.
And it doesn't really, it's fine for a luxury car, but you know, you really notice.
Put it in sporty driving mode.
And I like how when you put it in sporty driving mode, it kind of lowers the car a little bit, and then it gives you a tack. So it gets rid of that silly little gauge that shows like a power and or a gas droplet and electricity lightning bolt. But so the steering does get a little bit heavier, but there's something about this car that doesn't feel quite as playful.
That is a massive battery pack that's sitting right here between us, because it gives us about 12 to 14 miles of range. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but it really does help the fuel economy, because we've been driving all these cars pretty hard back to back. And most of the time, Sofyan's camera guy, Rob, and myself, we've all been in each of these going back to back, right on each other's tails, up and down the roads, trying to compare them back to back to back so we can see how each feels. And this has been right there in the middle of the pack, because this actually goes faster 0 to 60 than the Acura. It's actually significantly faster 0 to 60. It's right between the two.
Yeah.
And we've been averaging about 24, 25 miles per gallon overall in this, and just under 13 in the Acura, and under 10 in the Stelvio.
That's okay.
And I know it sounds, I know on the surface of things you think to yourself, well, gosh, it's a hybrid, of course it's going to get good fuel economy, but this is a 400 horsepower, 472 pound-foot of torque hybrid system that goes 0 to 60 under 5 seconds and is still getting 24, 25 miles per gallon. And we plugged it in for a very short while, but actually we didn't have it plugged in for long enough, so we actually left it just sitting there idling in its charge mode so we could get enough charge so we could actually film it on camera in its EV mode, and that is by far the least efficient way to get your battery charged. And we've still been in that 24, 25 mile per gallon range.
Yeah, no, I mean, they've done a really good job with the fuel economy in the real world, because if you look at the EPA numbers, this is only rated at 26 combined. But the fact that it can get like 23, 24 with, us with our lead foots driving it is pretty impressive.
And I was kind of surprised, because we recently had the Lexus NX hybrid, and in it we got about 28 miles per gallon over a week. And I was kind of really shocked, because it's half as powerful as this, and it only managed to get a few miles per gallon more.
Yeah,
it's
I'd
like
have this all day long.
I would give up the few MPG for double the power.
For me, I feel like with Toyota's hybrid systems or Lexus, I'm a little disappointed with them. They just don't have that torque, that instant surge that a lot of the newer electric systems, even like Hondas, they have that electric motor feel, versus Toyotas and Lexus, they still have that gas engine droning, the CVT feel, and I'm kind of like, I wish they'd go away from that.
But it is worth noting that if you do opt for this T8 hybrid system, you get this unusual combination of things. where you can only send about 100 horsepower or so, a little bit, actually less, about 89 or something like that horsepower to the rear, and then 300 and something is going on up front.
Yes, you get some torque steer.
Yeah, so you get a little bit of torque steer in there.
Front end wheel hop, it's funny.
And if you're on a tight, like autocross style course and you floor it, you can get the unusual combination that is unique to Volvo of torque steer and oversteer at the same time, because you can get the rear end to kick out because there's a lot of torque going on out back thanks to the electric motor, but then there's still torque steer up front. So now on to the most important question. If you had $45,000, which one would you buy?
Well, I guess considering that this is the only one here that's $45,000, but you could get these for $45,000, but they are less well equipped.
Right. I think that's the key, because any of these three is available at $45,000. You could get a nicely equipped T5, a very lightly equipped T6, or you could get a Stelvio TI with the performance package.
So the sport package.
After applicable dealer discounts going. That's a bit of a stretch though, but you are going to find a better deal on this on the dealer lot.
Right.
Could get that. So that would give you the performance brakes. And 280 horsepower.
No, I mean, out of these three, this is definitely the most exciting. Realistically, I feel like you're going to spend closer to 50, comparably equipped versus
45.
45, right.
So 45.
So I have to give up some features to get one of these two, or I could just get the RDX. Ooh.
And this is going to cost you more to keep around.
Yeah, so with reliability, because of concern, Alfa definitely is the one that a lot of you are probably like, you make sure you keep that under warranty while you have it.
Although the TI's done okay. Supposedly an initial reliability TI's done okay, but still logically more expensive.
So for me, I guess if it was my money, $45,000, you know, I'd probably have to just go with the RDX because it's the newest. I like, it's still quick, because I don't like the T5 engine in the Volvo.
Yeah, the T5 is a little slow.
It feels sluggish.
It's a little slow.
It's also a little too soft. The Stelvio, I love how it's quicker, sounds great, but the cramped back seat and the small cargo area is probably a deal breaker for me in that regard. I would easily pick the Quadrifoglio because it kind of makes up for that with the noise.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll get there, right? But if I had to spend $45,000 on just a practical luxury crossover, easily the RDX. It has the most room. It's the newest. It's quick. Great value for money, and it also doesn't look half bad.
But if you want the sportiest, you can now get the rear-wheel drive Stelvio for 2019.
Really?
So you can get a rear-wheel drive one with the 2-liter turbo and the performance package for $45,000.
Really? Okay.
I don't know if that's what I would buy, but that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Now, what about $55,000?
$55,000 Volvo. I'd have to get the Volvo, the T6, because it's such a perfectly balanced car. I mean,
and you can get a very nicely equipped T6 for $55,000.
You can, and you get 316 horsepower, that nice interior with the massaging seats. So $55,000 easily would get.
So what about $65,000?
$65,000. Well, $65,000 can't get me the Quadrifoglio.
Not quite yet,
because that starts at $79,000.
Still the Volvo? Or would you buy an RDX and something else?
I actually, you know what? I may actually say that I would probably go for the SQ5 if I was going to spend $65,000.
I was disappointed in the SQ5. The performance, it was so much slower than I expected it. I kind of like the idea of the T8 because it fulfills the luxury side of this segment so well that so many others have abandoned. Like, you know, there's no really luxurious version of the X3 at $70,000 ish. You know, it's not soft. It's more sporty.
Yeah.
This is definitely going to be more sporty as well. And even the GLC 43 is sporty. It's not luxury.
Right. It rides too harsh. The last one we drove in Oregon was a
and this is just
ride.
as fast, but it's softer. So I would probably get this at 70 even too.
Okay.
But if you had a lot to spend,
so I mean,
would you Quadrifoglio?
So this one's $86,000, and really, what does it compete with? You've got the Mercedes GLC 63, which is $70,000, but it only has 469 horsepower. So you have to get the ugly coupe, which is like $82,000,
and then you lose so much out. I mean, this is not terribly practical inside,
but the Mercedes is worse.
The coupe is much less practical.
Or you could also get the Porsche Macan Turbo with the performance package, which is $90,000.
Yes,
and I have
but
to say,
not quite as quick.
Not quite as quick. And I have not driven that model yet, so I can't say for sure if I would get that.
I've only driven it for a short while. I loved it, but still not quite as quick.
Yeah, this one has the most character. And then, of course, there's the Jaguar F-Pace SVR, which is not out yet, but it has that supercharged V8.
And I love the way the F-Pace drives.
Okay.
But it's so boring compared to this on the looks department.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
Jaguar's gone so ultra modern with their design that this just looks good. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the front, but it has so much more personality
Yeah.
than that F-Pace.
It screams hot hatch for me, and then I
does.
love the quad exhaust.
The quad
in the
exhaust
back.
is hilarious.
But really, what the Stelvio Quadrifoglio excels at for me is how it handles. This
Yes.
is easily the best handling.
And how it sounds.
How it sounds and the best handling. It's the best handling small crossover you can buy today. And honestly, when you drive it, I felt like I was driving a sports car.
Yep.
You drive it if you drive it like a sports car, you'll really appreciate it. If you start to drive it like the Volvo, you're kind of like,
Right. What's the point? I think our bottom line, we can bottom line it is, this is the sportiest, whether we're talking about the Quadrifoglio or the TI. For base sportiness,
Yep.
definitely this one. Luxury, definitely the Volvo. And if you're looking for the best buy in the segment, definitely the Acura RDX. It is so inexpensive, actually. And I know that's horrible to say in a way, because Acura is probably thinking maybe we could have charged more. But the top end trim of this really strikes me as very inexpensive for this segment.
Yeah, I mean, $48,000 gets you practically almost all the features you get
Yeah.
in the European cars, maybe minus the air suspension and the massaging seats. But honestly, at just under 50 grand, this is a great buy. And I'm really looking forward to Acura doing something like a Type S. With
That could be fun.
With like a twin turbo V6 and like over 300-ish horsepower. That would be nice, but until Acura delivers that, all you have is just the 2-liter turbo.
So there we have it. Let us know what you think about all that down there in the comment section below. Be sure and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so, and go over to Redline Reviews and hit that subscribe button there as well. And you'll see Sofyan. When do you post your videos during the week?
I typically post them either on Monday nights, Wednesday nights, and Friday nights,
There
or
we go.
I'll flip them around.
Oh, hey, so exactly the same schedule as us. So on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, if you're bored, just check out both channels. We'll see you next week.